The coffee cup shattered against the floor of the campus cafe, splashing hot liquid across Gloria's shoes. She stood frozen, her dark skin seemingly absorbing all the stares in the room, while the girl who'd bumped into her muttered something in Korean that didn't sound like an apology. The laughter that followed was sharp and deliberate. "Are you all right?" The voice came from behind her, smooth and concerned, speaking English with barely an accent. Gloria turned to find herself looking into the face of the most striking man she'd ever seen. His hair was pure white, unusual against his youthful Korean features, and his eyes held genuine worry. He was already kneeling, picking up the larger pieces of ceramic with careful hands. "I'm fine," she managed, her Ghanaian accent thick with embarrassment. "It's just coffee." "It's not just coffee," he said quietly, still in English, his eyes flicking toward the group of students who'd been laughing. They fell silent immediately. "It's never just coffee, is it?" He stood, depositing the broken pieces on a nearby tray, then looked at her directly. "I'm Mr. Park. I teach literature here. You're new to Busan International University. Gloria Mensa. Started last week." She was acutely aware that everyone was still watching them, that his intervention had made this moment even more visible. "Welcome to Korea, Gloria." He said her name carefully, respectfully, as if it mattered. "Don't let today define your experience here." Then he did something unexpected. He bowed to her, a formal gesture that made several students gasp. When he straightened, he switched to Korean, addressing the room with words she couldn't understand, but whose tone was unmistakable. It was a reprimand. After he left, the cafe remained quiet. Gloria cleaned her shoes in the bathroom, trying to ignore the way her hands shook. She'd known coming to Korea would be difficult. Her scholarship was prestigious, a full ride to study international relations, but nothing had quite prepared her for the casual cruelty she'd encountered in just 7 days. The stares on the subway. The way people moved away from her on benches. The children who pointed and their parents who didn't stop them. She'd come from Accra with dreams of bridging cultures, of building connections between her continent and this dynamic Asian nation. Instead, she was learning to make herself smaller, to apologize for existing in spaces that clearly didn't want her. Her afternoon literature elective was the one class she'd actually been looking forward to. When she walked into the classroom, she stopped short. Mr. Park stood at the front, writing on the board in elegant English script. He looked up as she entered, and for just a moment, something flickered in his expression before he schooled it back to professional neutrality. "Take any seat," he said pleasantly in English, then repeated it in Korean for the other students filing in behind her. Gloria chose a seat in the middle, not too forward, not too back. She was hyper-aware of Mr. Park throughout the 90-minute class, the way he moved through the room with fluid grace, the way his white hair caught the afternoon light, the passion in his voice when he discussed Haruki Murakami and the concept of loneliness in modern literature. "Loneliness," he said, leaning against his desk, "is often most profound when we're surrounded by people who see us, but don't truly perceive us. Who look without understanding." His eyes swept the room and, for just a heartbeat, landed on Gloria. "Literature helps us build bridges across that isolation. It forces us to inhabit lives different from our own." After class, as students filed out, Gloria gathered her things slowly. She wasn't sure why she was lingering, what she hoped might happen. "Miss Mensa." His voice stopped her at the door. She turned. The classroom was empty now. "I wanted to apologize for earlier. The way you were treated in the cafe. It's inexcusable. You don't need to apologize for other people, Mr. Park. Call me Jihun, please. When it's just us at least." He smiled, and it transformed his face from handsome to devastating. "And perhaps I do need to apologize. I should have done more, said more. You did enough. More than enough." She clutched her books tighter. "Thank you. How are you finding your classes?" Beyond the obvious social challenges. His concern seemed genuine, not performative. "The coursework is fine. Actually, it's more than fine. I'm learning a lot." She hesitated. "It's everything else that's hard." Jihun moved around his desk, leaning against it in a way that somehow made the space between them feel more intimate despite the distance. I studied abroad in London for 3 years. I thought I understood prejudice, the subtle kind that comes with being Asian in Western spaces. But I can't claim to understand what you're experiencing here. Korea can be. He searched for the word insular. Especially Busan. We're not Seoul, with its international population. Why is your hair white? The question escaped before Gloria could stop it. Sorry, that's personal. It's all right. He ran a hand through it self-consciously. Genetic condition. Poliosis. It's been this way since I was 17. You can imagine how that went over in a Korean high school where conformity is everything. His smile turned rueful. So perhaps I understand a bit more than I claimed. Being visibly different in a culture that prizes uniformity. Gloria found herself smiling back. We're both outsiders then. Yes, he said softly. I suppose we are. Their eyes held for a moment too long. Gloria felt heat rising in her cheeks and looked away first. I should go. I have another class. Of course. But Gloria. She paused at the door again. If you need anything, someone to talk to about adjusting here, my office hours are posted. Or just, if you need someone who understands what it's like to feel alone in a crowd. Over the following weeks, Gloria found herself living for literature class. Jihun was a brilliant teacher, pulling them through Kundera and Achebe, Morrison and Murakami, building connections between disparate voices and showing how stories could transcend borders. He was careful with her in class, never calling on her more than other students, never showing favoritism. But after class, when others had left, their conversations grew longer. She learned he was 28, young for a professor, but he'd finished his PhD early. He'd been working at the university for 2 years. He lived alone in a small apartment near Gwangali Beach. He loved jazz music and detective novels and had a weakness for terrible instant coffee that he knew was terrible but drank anyway. She told him about growing up in Accra, about her large, loud family and how much she missed her mother's groundnut soup. About her dreams of working in international diplomacy, of making Africa's voice heard in Asian economic partnerships. About feeling invisible and hypervisible at the same time here in Korea. It's like I'm simultaneously too much and not enough, she explained one afternoon, sitting in his office while rain pelted the windows. Too dark, too different, too foreign. But also not human enough to be treated with basic decency. Jihun's joy tightened. I wish I could say it gets easier. That people will adjust. But you can't promise that. No. He met her eyes. I can't. But I can promise that you matter. That your presence here matters. That you're not invisible to everyone. The weight in those words made Gloria's breath catch. She knew she should leave, that these afternoon conversations were beginning to feel like something more than teacher and student, more than just friendly mentoring. The way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. The way her heart rate increased whenever she saw his white hair in the hallway. The incident happened on a Tuesday evening. Gloria was walking back to her dormitory after a study session at the library. The streets of Busan were bustling with the dinner crowd, and she'd been so focused on navigating the sidewalk that she didn't notice the group of young men until one of them stepped in front of her. They were drunk, she realized immediately. University students, probably, though not from her school. Their Korean was slurred and aggressive, and even though she couldn't understand the words, she understood the mockery in their tone. One of them reached out and touched her hair without permission, saying something that made his friends laugh. Gloria's heart hammered. She tried to step around them, but they moved with her, boxing her in. Fear spiked cold through her veins. Is there a problem here? Jihun's voice cut through the evening air like a blade. He appeared beside her, his white hair distinctive under the streetlights, his posture radiating controlled anger. He spoke rapidly in Korean, his tone leaving no room for argument. The young men's expressions shifted from amusement to discomfort. They muttered something back, but Jihun stepped closer to Gloria, his presence a shield, and spoke again, harder this time. The men left, stumbling away with backward glances and muttered words. Gloria realized she was shaking. Thank you. I don't, thank you. Are you hurt? Jihun's hands hovered near her shoulders, not quite touching but close enough that she could feel their warmth. Did they hurt you? No. Just scared me. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. Come on. Let me walk you back to your dorm. It wasn't a question. His hand finally made contact, a gentle pressure on her back guiding her forward. They walked in silence for several blocks. Gloria's adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. What did you say to them? She finally asked. I told them they were a disgrace. That harassing a woman, especially a foreign student, was cowardly and shameful. I may have also implied I was taking down their descriptions for the police. He glanced at her. I wasn't actually, but they didn't need to know that. You always seem to appear when I need rescuing. I was walking home from dinner, saw them surrounding someone and came closer to. He trailed off. I didn't know it was you until I got closer. But I'm glad I was there. They'd reached her dormitory building. In the lobby's harsh fluorescent lighting, Gloria could see the tension still etched in Ji-hun's features. Are you okay? She asked. You look almost as shaken as I feel. When I saw it was you, he stopped, seeming to catch himself. I'm fine. I worry about you, Gloria. This city isn't always kind. I'm starting to realize that. She tried for a smile. But I'm tougher than I look. I know you are. You wouldn't have made it this far if you weren't. His eyes were dark and intense. But you shouldn't have to be tough all the time. You shouldn't have to armor yourself just to walk down the street. Is that how you feel? About your hair, about being different. He seemed surprised by the question, then thoughtful. Sometimes. Though it's different. My difference is visible, but I'm still Korean, still insider enough to navigate. You don't have that privilege here. The word privilege hung between them. Gloria knew he was right. Knew that despite his white hair, despite any otherness he felt, he was still protected by the culture in ways she would never be. Thank you, she said again. For walking me back. For being there. Anytime. He said it simply, but the way he was looking at her made her skin feel too warm. Good night, Gloria. She watched him leave, his white hair disappearing into the Busan night, and tried to ignore the way her heart was still racing, though no longer from fear. The next day's literature class focused on forbidden love in literature. Romeo and Juliet. Anna Karenina. The God of Small Things. Ji-hun traced the theme through centuries and cultures, talking about boundaries and transgression, about love that defied social order. Society creates rules, he said, pacing the front of the room, and literature explores what happens when people break them. Sometimes the breaking is heroic. Sometimes it's tragic. Often it's both. His eyes found Gloria's for just a moment. The question is whether the boundary was ever legitimate, or if it existed only to maintain power structures that needed challenging. After class, Gloria approached his desk. Other students filed out around them. That was an interesting lecture. You think so? He was organizing papers, not quite looking at her. I worried it might be too theoretical. No, it was. She paused, choosing her words carefully. It made me think about all the invisible boundaries we navigate. The ones we don't even question until suddenly they're relevant to our lives. Now he did look up. Yes, exactly that. The air between them felt charged. Gloria knew she should leave, should stop these moments of loaded conversation, but she couldn't seem to make herself move. Ji-hun, she said quietly, aware that she was using his first name in the classroom, crossing a small boundary herself. About last night. Miss Mensah, did you have a question about the assignment? Gloria turned. Another student had entered the room, a girl who looked between them with curious eyes. The spell broke. No, Professor Park. I was just leaving. Gloria grabbed her bag and fled. But the question remained unspoken between them. What were they doing? Where was this heading? And how long could they pretend that the pull between them was merely mentor and mentee, teacher and student, friend and friend? The answer came 2 weeks later, during midterms. Gloria had been stressed about her exams, sleeping poorly, barely eating. She'd submitted what she thought was a mediocre paper for Ji-hun's class, expecting an average grade. Instead, he'd given her an A and a note requesting she visit his office hours. She went on a Thursday afternoon when she knew the building would be mostly empty, everyone either taking exams or recovering from them. Ji-hun's office door was ajar. She knocked softly. Come in, Gloria. He was at his desk, his white hair slightly disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. Books and papers surrounded him in organized chaos. He looked tired but smiled when he saw her. You wanted to see me? Yes. Your paper on post-colonial identity in Achebe's work was exceptional. He held up the essay, covered in his neat handwriting in the margins. The way you connected things fall apart to contemporary African diaspora experiences in Asia was insightful and personal. It's some of the best analytical work I've seen from an undergraduate. Gloria felt warmth spread through her chest. Thank you. I wasn't sure if I was being too subjective. Not at all. The personal lens strengthened your analysis. He set the paper down. How are you doing? Beyond academics. You look exhausted. Midterms, she said with a shrug. And it's been a hard few weeks. More incidents? She didn't want to tell him about the woman who'd moved seats on the bus when Gloria sat down, or the restaurant that claimed to be full when it clearly had empty tables, or the constant, grinding weight of being stared at, commented on, treated like an exotic animal or a threat. But somehow the words came anyway, spilling out in a rush. Ji-hun listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stood and moved to the window, his back to her. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm sorry that this is your experience here. I'm sorry that I can't fix it. It's not your job to fix it. Isn't it? He turned back to face her. Isn't it all of our jobs to fix this? To make space for people who are different, to challenge our own prejudices and those of others. His passion was palpable. I've been thinking about what I said in class, about forbidden love and boundaries. About which boundaries are worth respecting and which deserve to be challenged. Gloria's pulse quickened. Ji-hun. I think about you constantly, he interrupted, the words rushing out as if he'd been holding them back too long. I know I shouldn't. I know there are professional boundaries, ethical considerations. You're my student. I'm your teacher. There's a power imbalance inherent in that. But Gloria, I can't stop thinking about you. About your mind, your resilience, the way you light up when you talk about your dreams for the future. The way you make me want to be better, do better. The office suddenly felt very small. Gloria's mouth had gone dry. I think about you too, she whispered. All the time. I tell myself it's just gratitude, that you've been kind when others haven't. But it's more than that. It's so much more than that. Ji-hun closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were full of conflict. We can't. You understand that, don't you? I could lose my job. You could lose your scholarship. The scandal if anyone found out that a professor and a student were. He couldn't finish the sentence. I know. Gloria felt tears prick her eyes. I know all of that. But standing here right now, looking at you, it's hard to care about the consequences. We have to care. But even as he said it, he was moving closer. We have to be smarter than this. Yes, Gloria agreed, even as she stood up, even as the space between them shrank to nothing. Later, Gloria wouldn't be sure who moved first. Maybe it was simultaneous, two people drawn together by gravity they couldn't resist. Ji-hun's hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch gentle and reverent. Gloria leaned into it, her eyes closing. This is a terrible idea, he murmured. The worst, she agreed. He kissed her then, soft and questioning, and Gloria felt the world tilt. Her hands found his shirt, gripping the fabric, pulling him closer. He made a sound low in his throat and deepened the kiss, and for a moment there was nothing but sensation, nothing but the feeling of being wanted, being seen, being precious to someone in a place where she'd felt invisible and unwanted. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. Oh God, Ji-hun stepped back, running his hands through his white hair. Gloria, I'm so sorry. That was unprofessional and inappropriate and... Don't apologize. Her voice was firmer than she felt. Don't you dare apologize for that. Not unless you didn't mean it. I meant it. His eyes were anguished. That's the problem. I meant every second of it. But we still can't. This can't happen. Then what do we do? Gloria felt tears threatening again. Just pretend this doesn't exist between us? Go back to polite classroom interactions and surface-level conversations. I don't know. He looked as lost as she felt. I need to think. We both need to think clearly. which we can't do right now. Gloria nodded, grabbing her bag with shaking hands. She needed to leave before she did something stupid like kiss him again, like beg him to forget ethics and rules and just be with her. At the door, she paused. Jihin? I don't regret it. What just happened? I know I should, but I don't. Neither do I, he admitted quietly. That's what terrifies me. Gloria fled before he could see her cry. The following week was torture. Gloria attended Jihoon's class, and he was nothing but professional, his eyes skating past her as if that kiss had never happened. She told herself it was for the best, that they were being smart and responsible. But at night, alone in her dorm room, she replayed that moment in his office over and over, the way his hand had felt against her cheek, the desperation in his kiss, as if he'd been starving for the taste of her. Friday evening found her at Gwangali Beach, watching the lights of the bridge reflect on the water. She needed to clear her head, to find some peace in the chaos of her emotions. The beach was crowded with couples and friend groups, and she felt her isolation keenly. I thought I might find you here. She spun around. Jihoon stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, his white hair glowing in the artificial lights from the bridge. He was wearing casual clothes, jeans and a sweater, and looked younger, less professorial. How did you know I'd be here? You mentioned once that you came here to think. That the ocean reminded you of home. He moved closer. I've been walking this beach for 3 hours hoping to run into you. I know this is probably creepy and I should have just texted, but texting leaves evidence, Gloria finished. The thought made her heart sink. Were they really going to do this? Have a secret affair that required planning and caution and lies? Can we walk? Jihoon asked. They fell into step together, maintaining a careful distance between their bodies even as every cell in Gloria's body screamed to move closer. The beach stretched before them, and the sound of waves provided a soundtrack to their silence. I talked to my mentor, Jihoon finally said. Professor Kim at Seoul National University. Hypothetically, of course. About a teacher who had feelings for a student. What did he say? That it happens more often than anyone admits. That the ethical thing is to wait until she's no longer his student, until the power dynamic is resolved. That acting on it now, regardless of feelings, is a violation of professional trust. Jihoon's voice was heavy. He's right. You know he's right. I know. Gloria stopped walking, turning to face the ocean. But you also said in class that some boundaries exist only to maintain power structures that need challenging. So which is this? A legitimate ethical boundary or an outdated rule? Both, Jihoon said miserably. It's both. The boundary exists to protect students from exploitation, which is legitimate. But it also assumes that students can't make their own choices, that they're perpetual victims without agency. Neither framework captures what's happening between us. Gloria turned to look at him. So, what do we do? I don't know. His eyes met hers, and the longing there made her breath catch. The semester ends in 2 months. After that, you won't be my student anymore. We could wait. 2 months of pretending this doesn't exist? Of professional distance and carefully neutral conversations. Gloria shook her head. I don't know if I can do that. This place is hard enough without having to police my feelings around the one person who makes me feel seen. It's not just about us, though. If anyone found out. Jihoon looked around as if checking for observers. The scandal would be worse for you than me. You're already facing prejudice. Being known as the foreign student who seduced her professor. Who said I'd be doing the seducing? Gloria tried to inject some humor, but it fell flat. You're right, though. The narrative would destroy me. They'd never believe I had agency, that I wanted this just as much as you do. Do you? The question was quiet, vulnerable. Want this? Because we can stop here, Gloria. We can go back to student and teacher, keep things professional. It would be hard, but we could do it. Gloria thought about it. Really thought about it. About returning to her dorm room alone every night, watching other students pair off while she remained isolated. About sitting in Jihoon's class and pretending her heart didn't race every time he spoke. About graduating in 3 years and leaving Korea never knowing what might have been. I don't want to stop, she said firmly. I want you. I want whatever version of this we can manage. even if it has to be secret. Even if it's complicated and risky and probably stupid. Relief and fear warred on Jihoon's face. We'd have to be so careful. No texting anything concrete. No meeting at university. No one can know, Gloria. Not your friends, not mine. One slip and we're both destroyed. I don't have friends here to tell anyway, Gloria said, and the loneliness in her voice made Jihoon flinch. We'll figure this out, he promised. Together. But not here, not in public. He glanced around again. Tomorrow. Come to my apartment tomorrow afternoon. We'll talk properly, set boundaries, figure out what this can be. Your apartment? Gloria's heart was racing again. Just to talk, Jihoon said, but his eyes were dark with something more than conversation. We need privacy to figure this out. They parted on the beach, walking in opposite directions, just two strangers who happened to be at the water at the same time. Gloria's hands were shaking as she made her way back to the dormitory. She was really doing this. They were really doing this. Jihoon's apartment was small but cozy, full of books and soft lighting. Gloria felt strange stepping into his private space, seeing the details of his life laid out before her. His coffee maker, indeed filled with cheap instant coffee. His collection of jazz vinyl records. His desk covered in student papers. I graded yours last night, he said, following her gaze. Couldn't stop thinking about the student who wrote it instead of the work itself. What did you give me? A-. Marked you down half a grade to avoid suspicion. He smiled ruefully. Professional integrity in the smallest measures. Gloria laughed despite herself. So this is how you solve your conscience? By grading me more harshly? Something like that. He was closer now, within touching distance. Gloria, we should talk about rules. About what this is going to be. Okay. Her voice came out breathless. Rules. That's smart. We should have rules. No texting anything romantic or incriminating. We communicate through coded messages or meet in person. Agreed. We never acknowledge each other on campus beyond what's appropriate for teacher and student. That seems reasonable. We tell no one. Absolutely no one. This stays between us until the semester ends. And after the semester? Gloria asked. What happens then? Jihoon reached out, finally touching her, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw. After the semester, you're no longer my student. We can be more open. Still discreet, but not hiding. Maybe then we can figure out what this is, what it might become. That's 2 months away. I know. His thumb brushed her lower lip. Can you wait 2 months? For this to be real, to be legitimate. Gloria leaned into his touch. I don't want to wait. I've been waiting my whole life, Jihoon. Waiting to be seen, to be valued, to be wanted. I'm tired of waiting. So what are you saying? I'm saying that I want you now. That these 2 months could be for us, something private and precious before the world gets to have opinions about it. I'm saying that maybe secret doesn't have to mean shame. Maybe it can just mean ours. Jihoon kissed her then, different from the desperate kiss in his office. This one was slower, deeper, a promise and a claiming all at once. Gloria's hands found his white hair, tangling in it, and he made that sound again, the one that sent heat pooling low in her belly. We should be smart about this, he murmured against her lips. We've already failed at smart, Gloria pointed out. Maybe we could try being happy instead. They spent the afternoon in his apartment, talking and kissing and learning the geography of each other. Jihoon traced the rich darkness of her skin with wondering fingers, marveling at the contrast against his own pale hands. Gloria learned that he was ticklish under his ribs, that he laughed with his whole body when truly amused, that he kissed like a man drowning and she was air. But they also talked. Really talked, about boundaries and consent and what they wanted this to be. Jihoon was insistent that Gloria understand she could say no at any point, that his position as her professor meant he had a responsibility to check in constantly about her comfort and agency. I need you to promise me something, he said seriously, his hands framing her face. If this ever feels like too much, if the secrecy becomes a burden, if you're uncomfortable with anything, you'll tell me. Even if you think it will hurt my feelings. Especially then. I promise, Gloria said. But Jihoon? The same goes for you. If you're having doubts, if the ethics are eating you alive, if you need to stop, tell me. I'll understand. They made it work. Over the following weeks, they developed a careful routine. Gloria would finish her classes and make her way to Jihoon's apartment through different routes each time. She learned to check for followers, to vary her patterns, to enter his building when the lobby was empty. It felt like spycraft, ridiculous and thrilling in equal measure. In his apartment, they could be themselves. Jihoon cooked her Korean dishes adapted for her palate, teaching her the names of ingredients and watching with delight as she tried new flavors. She introduced him to Ghanaian music, playing Sarkodie and Stonebwoy from her phone while they danced in his tiny living room. They watched movies in English and Korean, Jihoon translating when needed, Gloria explaining cultural references he didn't catch. And they talked. About everything. Jihoon told her about his childhood as the boy with white hair, about being bullied relentlessly until he learned to fight with words instead of fists, about discovering literature as a refuge and then a passion, about his parents' disappointment that he chose academia over business, about feeling like a perpetual outsider in his own culture. Gloria shared stories from Accra, about growing up with 4 siblings in a house always full of noise and love. About her mother's quiet strength and her father's booming laugh. About deciding to study abroad and her family's mixed reaction, pride and worry intertwined. About missing home so much sometimes it was a physical ache, but knowing she couldn't go back without achieving what she'd come here to do. "You're so brave," Jihoon said one evening, his head in her lap as she played with his white hair. "Coming here alone, facing all this hostility, staying despite everything. I don't feel brave. I feel exhausted." Bravery isn't the absence of fear or exhaustion. It's continuing despite them. He reached up to touch her face. "You're remarkable, Gloria Mensa. Don't ever doubt that." In class, they were perfect professionals. Jihoon called on her no more or less than other students. He critiqued her work with the same rigor he applied to everyone. If anything, he was slightly harder on her, overcompensating to avoid any appearance of favoritism. Gloria participated actively, raised her hand, debated interpretations of texts with other students. To anyone watching, she was simply a bright international student, and he was simply her professor. But there were moments. The flash of heat when their eyes accidentally met. The way her breath caught when he walked past her desk and she caught his scent. The tiny smile he couldn't quite suppress when she made a particularly insightful point. They were careful, so careful, but the connection between them hummed beneath the surface like an electric current. The strain showed in different ways. Jihoon became hyper-aware of university gossip, listening for any whispers about himself or Gloria. He checked his office door constantly to ensure it was open during office hours, paranoid about the appearance of impropriety. He lost weight from stress, his cheekbones becoming more pronounced, dark circles appearing under his eyes. Gloria struggled with the isolation. Having Jihoon was wonderful, but it also meant she had no one else. She couldn't confide in her dorm mates about her relationship troubles or joys. She couldn't post couple pictures on social media or hold hands in public. The secrecy that protected them also imprisoned them. "Sometimes I wonder if this is worth it," she admitted one night, curled against Jihoon's side on his couch. The stress, the hiding, the constant fear of discovery. Jihoon tensed. "Are you having second thoughts?" "No." "Yes." "I don't know." Gloria sat up to look at him. "I love what we have here, in this apartment, in private. But it's hard being in 2 different worlds. The Gloria in your class who has to pretend you're nothing special, and the Gloria here who gets to love you." Love. Jihoon's eyes were intense. "Is that what this is?" Gloria's breath caught. They hadn't used that word before, had been carefully avoiding it as if speaking it might make everything more real, more dangerous. "I think so," she whispered. "I think I'm falling in love with you. Maybe already have fallen." "Gloria," his voice cracked. "I love you. I've been afraid to say it, afraid it would make this harder. But I love you. The way you think, the way you challenge me, the way you refuse to let this city break you. Your strength and your vulnerability. All of it. I love all of it." They made love that night with new intensity, new meaning. Afterward, holding each other in the darkness, Gloria felt both deliriously happy and terrified. Love raised the stakes. Love made discovery that much more devastating. The first close call came in week 7. Gloria was leaving Ji-hun's apartment building when she nearly ran into another professor from the literature department. She'd seen him around, knew he and Ji-hun were friendly, though she didn't know his name. "Oh, excuse me," the man said in Korean, then switched to English when he saw her face. "You're one of the international students, yes? Lost?" "No, I was visiting a friend who lives here," Gloria said, proud of how steady her voice remained. "Just leaving now." "Ah, good. This is a nice neighborhood. Safe for walking at night." The professor smiled kindly and moved past her into the building. Gloria's heart didn't stop racing until she was 3 blocks away. She texted Ji-hun a simple message, "Made it home." Their code for something had gone wrong, but she was safe. He called immediately, using a voice app that scrambled his number. "What happened?" She told him about the encounter. On the other end of the line, she heard Ji-hun exhale shakily. "Professor Choi. He's observant, Gloria. If he mentions seeing you to me, asks about it. You say you don't know why I was there. That you have no idea who I might be visiting." Gloria's voice was firmer than she felt. "It's a big building, Ji-hun. Lots of people live there. You're right. I'm being paranoid." But he didn't sound convinced. "Maybe we should cool things down for a bit. Just until the semester ends." 3 more weeks, Gloria said quietly. "We can make it 3 more weeks." But the close call had rattled them both. They saw each other less frequently, and when they did, the paranoia was a third presence in the room. Ji-hun checked his windows constantly, worried about being seen. Gloria jumped at every unexpected sound, certain they were about to be discovered. The second close call was worse. One of Gloria's dorm mates, a Korean girl named Minji who'd been marginally friendly, knocked on her door late one evening. "Gloria? Can I talk to you?" Gloria opened the door, trying to look casual despite her pounding heart. "What's up?" Minji bit her lip, looking uncomfortable. "I don't want to spread rumors or anything, but some people have been saying they think you're dating someone. Someone at the university." Gloria's blood ran cold. "That's ridiculous. Who would I be dating? In case you haven't noticed, I'm not exactly popular here." "I know, that's what I told them. It's just, you're gone a lot on weekends and evenings, and someone said they saw you in Gwangali, which is where a lot of the younger professors live." Minji trailed off. "I'm probably being stupid. Forget I said anything." "Minji." Gloria caught her arm as she turned to leave. "Who's saying this? What exactly did they see?" "I don't know who started it. But the rumor is you're having an affair with a professor. They don't know which one, and, honestly, most people think it's nonsense because, well..." Minji flushed. "Because you're foreign, and they can't imagine any of the professors being interested." The casual racism stung even as it provided cover. "Well, there you go. It's nonsense. I'm not dating anyone. I study a lot, and sometimes I like to walk by the beach to think. That's it." After Minji left, Gloria sat on her bed and tried to stop shaking. She needed to tell Ji-hun, but texting was too risky and calling seemed paranoid. She'd have to wait until their next scheduled meeting, still 2 days away. Those 2 days were agony. In literature class, Gloria could barely focus. When Ji-hun called on her to analyze a passage from The Handmaid's Tale, she stumbled through an answer, painfully aware of students whispering behind her. After class, Ji-hun asked her to stay back. When the room emptied, he closed the door, unusual for him, and turned to her with worry etched on his face. "What's wrong?" "You were distracted today, and you're never distracted." Gloria told him about the rumors. She watched the color drain from his face, watched his hands clench into fists. "We have to stop," he said flatly. "This is getting too dangerous." "Stop." Gloria felt panic rising. "Stop what?" "Stop seeing each other? Stop caring about each other. Just for now. Just until the semester ends." But he wouldn't meet her eyes. "It's only 2 more weeks, Gloria. We can wait 2 more weeks." "I don't want to wait." She was crying now, not caring that she was crying in his classroom where anyone might walk in. "I don't want to give this up." "Give you up?" I don't want that either. Now he did look at her and his eyes were anguished. But we have to be smart. If they're already speculating, if people are watching, we can't risk being discovered now. Not when we're so close to the finish line. The finish line, Gloria repeated bitterly. Is that what the end of semester is? When you're free to be with me without consequences? What happens if you realize during these 2 weeks that it's not worth it, that I'm not worth it? Don't say that. Jihyun moved toward her, then stopped himself, remembering where they were. You're worth everything to me. But that's exactly why we have to protect this, protect you. If this comes out now, you lose your scholarship. You're sent home in disgrace. Everything you've worked for, destroyed because of me. Gloria wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She'd come to Korea with dreams bigger than just surviving, bigger than just falling in love with a white-haired professor who saw her when no one else would. She had 3 more years of university ahead of her, a career in international relations to build, a family back home depending on her success. Okay, she said finally. 2 weeks. We don't see each other, we don't communicate beyond what's necessary for class. But Jihyun? After the semester ends, we do this properly. No more hiding, at least not from ourselves. I promise, he said. 2 weeks. Then everything changes. They were the longest 2 weeks of Gloria's life. She threw herself into final exams and papers, using academics as an escape from the ache of Jihyun's absence. She saw him only in class, where he was distant and professional, where she forced herself to be just another student asking clarifying questions about assignments. The rumors seemed to die down, or maybe people just lost interest in speculating about the foreign student's non-existent love life. Gloria overheard someone in the dining hall saying they'd heard she was actually dating another international student, a Chinese guy from the engineering department. She didn't bother correcting them. Finals week arrived. Gloria wrote her last paper for Jihyun's class, a comparative analysis of exile and belonging in post-colonial literature, and felt like she was pouring her own experience onto the page. Everything she couldn't say to him directly went into the essay: her loneliness, her resilience, her refusal to let displacement define her. She submitted it electronically, as required, and then it was done. The semester was over. She was no longer Jihyun's student. The email came that night. Meet me at the beach tomorrow. Dawn. Where the bridge meets the sand. Gloria barely slept. She was at Gwangali Beach before sunrise, the city still quiet, the bridge lights reflecting on calm water. When Jihyun appeared, walking along the sand with his white hair catching the first hints of dawn, she felt her heart might burst from her chest. He didn't say anything at first. Just pulled her into his arms and held on tight, his face buried in her neck, his body shaking slightly. Gloria held him back with equal desperation, tears streaming down her face. Never again, he murmured into her hair. Never again will I go 2 weeks without touching you, without holding you. The semester's over, Gloria said, pulling back to look at him. I'm not your student anymore. No, Jihyun agreed, cupping her face in his hands. Now you're just the woman I love. The woman I want to build a life with if she'll have me. What about the university? The ethics questions. I talked to the dean yesterday. Disclosed our relationship, explained it started this semester, but we waited to be together until it ended. He wasn't happy, but since you passed my class fairly, and your work really was exceptional, Gloria, and since you're not my student anymore, there's nothing he can do to stop us. I'll recuse myself from ever teaching or evaluating you again. We can't hide anymore, not completely. Gloria's mind was reeling. You told the dean? You risked your job. You're worth the risk. Jihyun's smile was soft and certain. Every risk, every consequence. I'm done hiding, done pretending you're not the most important person in my life. If the university has a problem with that, they can fire me. I'll find another job. But I won't lose you. Not now, not ever, if I can help it. The sun was rising properly now, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, turning Jihyun's white hair to gold. Gloria kissed him as the beach slowly came to life around them, as early morning joggers and elderly fishermen started their days. Let them see, she thought fiercely. Let the whole city see. But of course, it wasn't that simple. The next few weeks brought their own challenges. Word spread quickly through the university that Professor Park was dating an international student, that foreign girl from his literature class. The reactions ranged from supportive to scandalized to predictably racist. "I always knew she was here to seduce Korean men," Gloria overheard one student say in the library. "He must have a fetish for dark skin," another speculated. "That's the only explanation." "It's inappropriate," an older professor remarked loudly in the faculty lounge when Ji-hun was present, setting a bad example for students. Ji-hun endured it with gritted teeth and as much grace as he could muster. But Gloria saw the toll it took, the way his jaw tightened when confronted with gossip, the way his hands clenched when students whispered as they passed. "Maybe this was a mistake," she said one evening in his apartment. "Making it public. We could have just waited until I graduated, left the country together, started over somewhere else." "No." Ji-hun was firm. "Hiding would have destroyed us eventually. At least now we're fighting this together, in the open." Fighting was the right word. Gloria's remaining time at the university became a gauntlet of judgment and speculation. Some students, particularly other international students who'd struggled with their own isolation, were supportive. But the majority treated her with either disdain or prurient curiosity. The worst came from Professor Choi, the man who'd seen Gloria leaving Ji-hun's building. He formally complained to the dean, arguing that Ji-hun had violated ethical guidelines by pursuing a student, regardless of when the physical relationship had begun. The investigation was brief but humiliating. Both Gloria and Ji-hun had to give statements, had to explain the timeline of their relationship, had to prove that grades hadn't been influenced and boundaries hadn't been crossed until appropriate. Gloria's paper, the one she'd poured her heart into, was reviewed by an independent committee to ensure it had been fairly graded. "It's an excellent piece of work," the reviewing professor concluded. "Easily worth the A it received, possibly better. There's no evidence of favoritism." The dean ultimately cleared Ji-hun of wrongdoing, but issued a formal warning. "You showed poor judgment," he told Ji-hun in a meeting that Gloria was not privy to but heard about later. "Even if you technically waited until she was no longer your student, the appearance of impropriety is damaging to the university." "Would it be equally damaging if she were Korean?" Ji-hun asked bluntly. "Or is the problem that she's foreign, that she's black, that people can't believe we genuinely care about each other?" The dean had no answer for that. Through all of it, Ji-hun and Gloria clung to each other. On the hardest days, when Gloria wanted to give up and go home, Ji-hun reminded her of her dreams, her goals, the reasons she'd come to Korea in the first place. On the nights when Ji-hun questioned whether he'd ruined his career for a relationship that might not survive the pressure, Gloria showed him through words and touch and presence that she wasn't going anywhere. They found allies in unexpected places. Minji, the dorm mate who'd warned Gloria about rumors, became a genuine friend once everything was out in the open. "I think it's romantic," she said simply. "And anyone who has a problem with it is probably just jealous or racist or both." Some of Ji-hun's colleagues, while not openly supportive, quietly made it known they didn't judge him. Professor Choi remained hostile, but others in the department treated Gloria with courtesy when she visited campus to meet Ji-hun, acknowledging her as his partner rather than a student. Slowly, painfully, they carved out a life together in Busan. Gloria excelled in her remaining courses, determined to prove she was more than her relationship with Ji-hun. She joined the International Relations Club, started a blog about her experiences as an African student in Korea, began building the network she'd need for her future career. Ji-hun published a paper on love and ethics in contemporary Korean literature that was transparently about their relationship, though he never named Gloria directly. It was picked up by several academic journals and sparked conversations about power dynamics and agency in student-teacher relationships. Some praised his honesty, others condemned what they saw as rationalization. 6 months after the semester ended, on a cold January evening with snow falling softly outside, Ji-hun took Gloria back to Gwangali Beach. They walked along the sand in the darkness, their breath misting in the winter air. "I've been thinking," Ji-hun said, his hand warm in hers. "About us, about the future, about everything we've been through. Gloria's heart started to race. And I don't want to wait anymore. He stopped walking and turned to face her, his white hair dusted with snowflakes, his eyes serious and full of love. I don't want to wait to build a life with you. To make this official in every way that matters. He pulled a small box from his pocket and dropped to one knee on the cold sand. Gloria Mensa, you walked into my classroom 8 months ago and changed my entire world. You challenged me to be braver, to question the boundaries I'd accepted, to fight for what matters. You made me believe that love could transcend cultural barriers, professional ethics, and every obstacle people tried to throw in our path. Will you marry me? Gloria was crying again, but these were happy tears, joyful tears. Yes, she said, pulling him to his feet and kissing him hard. Yes, yes, yes. They married quietly 6 months later in a small ceremony attended by Gloria's family, who flew from across specifically for the occasion, and a handful of their closest friends. Gloria wore a dress that blended Ghanaian Kent cloth with Korean silk, a visual representation of their merged lives. Jihun wore traditional hanbok, his white hair crowned with the traditional gat hat, looking like something out of a fairy tale. It wasn't easy. Gloria still faced racism, still encountered people who couldn't see past her dark skin. Jihun still dealt with colleagues who disapproved of their relationship. But they faced it together, as partners, as equals, as two people who'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. 3 years later, Gloria graduated with honors and a job offer from the Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs, working in their African Relations Division. Jihun continued teaching, now with a reputation as the professor who'd stood up for love even when it cost him. His white hair became something of a legend on campus, the mark of a man who'd always been different, always been outside, and who'd found someone equally rare to walk beside him. They moved into a larger apartment near the beach, where they could hear the waves at night and watch the bridge lights reflect on water. On quiet evenings, they would sit on their balcony and remember that first meeting in the cafe, that shattered coffee cup that had somehow led to this. Do you ever regret it? Gloria asked one night. All the struggle, the judgment, the cost? Jihun pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. Never. Not for 1 second. You're the best choice I ever made. Even when it was the wrong choice? Especially then. He smiled. Some of the best things in life start as terrible ideas. We just had the courage to see it through. Gloria looked out at the Busan night, at the city that had been so unwelcoming when she'd first arrived, that had become home despite everything. She thought about all the international students who would come after her, who would face their own battles with racism and isolation. She thought about the story she and Jihun had written together, not a perfect romance, but a real one, messy and complicated and absolutely worth it. I love you, she said simply. White hair, terrible coffee habits, and all. I love you too, Jihun replied. My dark-skinned, brilliant, brave wife. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for staying when leaving would have been easier. Thank you for making me feel less alone, Gloria whispered. For being my home in a place that didn't want to make room for me. They sat together as night deepened over Busan, two outsiders who'd found each other in a city of 7 million, two people who'd loved despite the cost, despite the consequences, despite everything that should have kept them apart. The bridge lights sparkled on the water like a promise, like a future, like everything they'd fought for and everything they'd yet to become. In the end, their love story wasn't about a teacher and a student breaking rules. It was about two lonely people finding each other in a place that tried to keep them isolated. It was about choosing love even when love chose the worst possible time and circumstance. It was about surviving judgment and emerging stronger, about building something real in the space between what was permitted and what was possible. It was about being seen, being chosen, being loved exactly as they were.